My beloved child. There are moments that arrive without making a sound, yet they change the direction of two hearts forever. This is one of those moments. It did not begin with dramatic words or a sudden confession. It began with silence, the kind of silence that only appears when someone has been carrying feelings for far longer than they know how to express. Somewhere beyond your sight, the person your heart continues to remember has been searching for the courage to face something they can no longer hide from themselves. What they have been trying to protect is not their pride, it is the fragile hope that, somehow, the distance between you has not erased what was once quietly growing. If you have found these words today, do not rush past them. Something important is waiting for you, and every sentence will uncover another small piece of what has remained hidden until now. A quiet truth often reveals itself in unexpected ways. Your soulmate has discovered that pretending everything is fine has become more exhausting than admitting what they truly feel. They have smiled when others were watching, continued through ordinary days, answered simple questions, and carried on as though nothing had changed. Yet when the world became still, another reality appeared. Thoughts of you returned without invitation. Familiar memories surfaced in places they never expected. A song, a passing conversation, the evening sky, each one gently reminded them of someone they believed they had successfully placed behind them. Instead of disappearing, those memories grew softer, deeper, and somehow impossible to ignore. What surprised them most was not the return of those memories. It was the realization that every attempt to move forward seemed incomplete without understanding what your place in their life truly meant. They stopped asking whether they should remember you. They began asking why their heart refused to forget. There is a profound difference between those two questions, and it changed everything. Sometimes answers do not arrive as loud announcements. Sometimes they appear as quiet certainty, arriving one ordinary day and refusing to leave again. Perhaps this explains why you have recently sensed emotions that were difficult to describe. Maybe there were moments when you felt unusually reflective, as though someone had crossed your thoughts without any obvious reason. Connections between people are often understood only after they have already begun unfolding. We rarely notice the first ripple while staring at the surface of the water. Only later do we realize something deeper has been moving beneath it all along. Do you know what has brought tears to your soulmate's eyes? It was not regret alone. It was gratitude mixed with longing. They remembered small things you may have already forgotten. A sentence you spoke without realizing its importance. A kindness that asked for nothing in return. A quiet patience that stayed present when life became uncertain. Those moments seemed ordinary at the time, yet they settled inside their heart with remarkable permanence. Only now have they fully understood the weight those memories continue to carry. There are people who believe love is built through grand gestures. Yet your soulmate has begun realizing that the strongest emotions often grow from the smallest moments, the conversations that lasted longer than expected, the gentle encouragement that arrived on difficult days, the feeling of being accepted without needing to become someone else. Those simple experiences have quietly returned to them again and again, until they could no longer pretend they meant nothing. Do not skip this part, because the next realization changes everything. Your soulmate is not overwhelmed because they suddenly discovered your value. They are emotional because they finally recognized how deeply your presence shaped parts of their own life that they once took for granted. That understanding arrived slowly, almost gently. But once it settled into their heart, it became impossible to ignore. Still, something remains unfinished. They have not yet found the exact words they wish they could place before you. Every version feels incomplete. Every imagined conversation leaves one feeling unspoken. It is as though they are standing at the edge of a bridge, knowing the distance can be crossed, yet waiting for the right moment to take the first step. That hesitation is not created by doubt. It comes from wanting every word to reflect what has been quietly growing inside them for longer than either of you may realize. Stay till the end, because the next part does not begin where you expect it to. It begins with an unexpected discovery your soulmate made about themselves, a discovery that completely transformed the message they have been trying to send you all this time, and once that truth is revealed, nothing about this journey will feel quite the same again. There is a quiet moment that changes a person forever, and strangely, it almost never feels extraordinary while it is happening. It arrives unnoticed, wrapped inside an ordinary evening, a familiar street, or a simple memory that appears without invitation. Your soulmate stepped into such a moment recently. They believed they were simply reflecting on the past, but what unfolded was something much deeper. Instead of remembering who you were, they suddenly began understanding who they had become because you had once entered their life. That realization did not arrive all at once. It unfolded like the first light before sunrise, soft enough to miss if you were not paying attention, yet impossible to deny once the sky had completely changed. They paused longer than usual before answering people around them. Not because they had nothing to say, but because another conversation had quietly begun inside their heart. Every question seemed to lead back to you. Every peaceful moment carried a familiar presence they could no longer explain away. They tried to distract themselves with routines that had always worked before, yet this time the silence gently returned, carrying your memory with it. The more they resisted, the more they understood that some connections are not meant to disappear simply because time has passed. Then something unexpected happened. A single thought entered their mind with unusual clarity. What if the most important thing I have been searching for was never truly lost? That question stayed with them long after everything else had faded into the background. They did not speak it aloud. They carried it quietly, turning it over again and again until it became impossible to ignore. Questions have remarkable power. The right question can open a door that certainty never could. This one opened a part of their heart they had carefully kept closed. Perhaps you have experienced something similar without realizing it. There are days when someone crosses your thoughts for no obvious reason. You are not trying to remember them, yet they appear anyway, almost as though your heart noticed something before your mind did. These moments are easy to dismiss, but they often remind us that meaningful connections leave gentle echoes that time cannot erase. Your soulmate has begun noticing those echoes everywhere. Not in dramatic signs. Not in impossible coincidences. But in ordinary moments that suddenly feel different. A familiar place carries unexpected warmth. A passing conversation reminds them of your kindness. Even the quiet between busy hours seems to whisper questions they can no longer avoid. It is not the world changing around them. It is their perspective changing from within. What surprises them most is how vividly they remember the smallest details about you. The way you listened without interrupting. The calm you brought into uncertain moments. The patience you offered without asking for recognition. These memories have become more valuable with time instead of fading. Only now do they understand why. Sometimes the heart protects what the mind forgets. It quietly preserves moments that seemed ordinary because it already knew they would matter one day. That realization has brought unexpected emotion. Not because they are trapped in yesterday, but because they finally recognize the quiet beauty they almost overlooked. Don't skip what comes next, because this is where everything begins to shift. Your soulmate has stopped asking themselves whether they should reach out someday. Instead, they have started wondering what they would say if that moment arrived sooner than expected. That difference may seem small, yet it changes everything. One question looks backward. The other begins looking forward. Without realizing it, hope has quietly taken the place where uncertainty once lived. Yet there is still one sentence they cannot bring themselves to speak. It remains unfinished, resting silently within them. Every time they come close to expressing it, emotion gently interrupts the words before they can be completed. They are not searching for perfect language anymore. They are searching for honest language. And sometimes honesty asks us to become vulnerable before it allows us to become understood. Something important is waiting just beyond this moment. Because in the next part, someone completely unexpected will say a few simple words to your soulmate, words that seem ordinary at first, yet awaken a realization they never saw coming. From that moment forward, the message they have been carrying for you will begin taking a shape neither of you could have imagined. A single conversation can quietly reshape the direction of an entire heart, and the remarkable thing is that no one else may ever realize it happened. Your soulmate did not wake up expecting anything different that day. They believed it would pass like every other ordinary day. The hours unfolded gently, familiar faces came and went, everyday responsibilities filled the spaces between thoughts, and everything appeared completely unchanged. Yet hidden inside one seemingly ordinary exchange was a sentence that settled deeply within them, refusing to leave. The person speaking had no idea how meaningful those words would become. They were not offering advice. They were simply sharing an observation, one that sounded almost effortless. They smiled softly and said, "The people who leave the deepest mark on our lives are rarely the loudest. They're the ones who quietly help us become a better version of ourselves." The conversation moved on. Everyone else forgot those words within moments. But your soulmate could not. Without warning, your face appeared in their mind with a clarity they had not experienced before. Not because of how you looked, but because of how they always felt whenever they remembered being understood by you. They realized that some people are remembered for exciting moments, while others are remembered because they brought peace. And suddenly, they understood which place you had quietly earned inside their heart. They remained unusually thoughtful for the rest of the day. They replayed old conversations that once seemed ordinary. They remembered moments when you encouraged them without expecting recognition. They remembered the times you noticed what others overlooked. They remembered the calm you carried into situations where everyone else became impatient. Only now did they understand how rare that kind of presence truly is. It is easy to admire someone during extraordinary moments. It is much harder, and far more meaningful, to appreciate the quiet consistency of someone who simply made life feel lighter without ever asking for praise. That realization reached them slowly. Then another thought followed. If they were standing beside me right now, would I finally have the courage to tell them everything? The question lingered longer than they expected. For the first time, they did not imagine a perfect conversation. They imagined an honest one. No rehearsed speeches. No carefully chosen lines. Just truth. Simple. Gentle. Real. Sometimes the heart grows tired of hiding behind perfect words. Sometimes it simply wants to be seen exactly as it is. Your soulmate is beginning to understand that. They are discovering that vulnerability is not weakness. It is often the quiet beginning of genuine closeness. That realization has softened something inside them. The walls they built to protect themselves no longer feel as necessary as they once did. If you have ever wondered whether quiet acts of kindness truly matter, this is your answer. The smallest moments often become the strongest memories. A thoughtful sentence. A patient silence. A smile offered during someone's difficult day. These are the things that remain when everything else fades. Stay till the end, because another realization is quietly approaching. Late one evening, your soulmate found themselves looking at something they had almost forgotten existed. It was not expensive. It was not extraordinary. Yet the instant they saw it, every feeling they had been trying to keep buried returned with unexpected clarity. They simply stood there, unable to look away. And in that silent moment, one decision began forming inside their heart, a decision that will become impossible to ignore in the next part. There are certain memories that never ask for attention. They wait patiently, tucked away beneath the ordinary rhythm of life, until one quiet moment invites them back into the light. Your soulmate did not go searching for such a memory. It found them on its own. As they reached for something they had almost forgotten, their hand paused. Resting quietly before them was a small reminder of a time that seemed distant, yet somehow still alive. It carried no great value to anyone else, but to them it held something far more meaningful. A feeling they had never truly let go of. For a long while, they simply looked at it. Not because they were trapped in the past. Because they suddenly realized how much of their heart had continued walking beside your memory without asking for permission. The room was still. No one interrupted. No phone rang. No conversation distracted them. Only silence, and the gentle realization that some feelings become clearer when the world grows quiet enough to hear them. A thought rose within them with surprising calm. I've been waiting for certainty, but perhaps what I've been feeling all along has already been the answer. Those words were never spoken aloud. They didn't need to be. Sometimes the deepest conversations happen entirely within the heart. They began reflecting on every reason they had once convinced themselves to stay silent. Some reasons had seemed wise at the time. Some had been born from uncertainty. Others had simply come from believing there would always be another opportunity. But something had changed. They were no longer asking whether tomorrow would bring a better moment. They had started appreciating how precious today really is. That quiet shift transformed everything. They thought about the version of themselves you once knew. Then they thought about the person they are becoming now. For the first time, they smiled. Not because every question had been answered, but because they realized growth had quietly been happening while they were busy searching for certainty. They understood something many people spend years trying to learn. The heart does not become stronger by pretending it feels nothing. It becomes stronger by accepting what is true without allowing fear to decide the future. Perhaps that is why your presence has returned to them with such unexpected warmth. Not as an unfinished chapter. Not as a distant memory. But as someone whose kindness continues to shape the way they see love itself. Don't skip this moment. Something important is waiting for you. Because while your soulmate was sitting with these thoughts, something remarkable happened, not around them, but within them. For the first time in a long while, they stopped imagining what could go wrong. Instead, they allowed themselves to imagine what could go right. It was a quiet change. Almost impossible to notice from the outside. Yet inside, it felt like the first deep breath after carrying invisible weight for far too long. Hope had not arrived with excitement. It arrived with peace. And peace gave them the courage to consider a possibility they had avoided for far too long. What if the message I've been holding back doesn't need to be perfect? What if it only needs to be honest? That single realization stayed with them long after the evening had faded. They knew honesty might not answer every question. But they also knew silence never could. As the night grew quieter, they reached for something they had not touched in a very long time. Their fingers hesitated. Their heartbeat slowed. A few words began forming in their mind, simple, sincere, and deeply personal. They weren't writing them yet. They were gathering the courage to let those words exist. And when the first sentence finally comes together in the next part, you will discover why they have been quietly whispering in their heart all this time. Please, open this before it's too late. The first sentence did not arrive with confidence. It arrived with hesitation, carrying the weight of everything your soulmate had kept hidden for far too long. They sat quietly, allowing the silence to settle around them, knowing that some words deserve patience before they are spoken. There was no audience. No expectation. Only an honest heart trying to find the courage to become completely sincere. They closed their eyes for a moment. Not to escape the past. But to understand it. One memory after another drifted gently through their mind. They remembered laughter that appeared without effort. Conversations that seemed ordinary at the time but now felt priceless. The quiet comfort of simply knowing someone understood them without demanding explanations. Those moments had never asked to become unforgettable. Yet they had. Then something unexpected happened. Instead of remembering what you had said, they remembered how you had made them feel. Safe. Accepted. Seen. Those feelings are rare. They cannot be borrowed, replaced, or recreated by force. They grow naturally when two hearts meet with honesty, and your soulmate finally realized that what they had been missing was never just a conversation with you. It was the peace that always seemed to arrive whenever your presence became part of their day. A gentle smile appeared across their face. It was small. Almost unnoticed. But it carried a quiet hope they had not felt in a very long time. For the first time, they stopped trying to rewrite the past. Instead, they became grateful for what those memories had quietly taught them. Every joyful moment. Every misunderstanding. Every silence. Every lesson. Together, they had shaped a heart that now understood love more deeply than before. Don't skip this part, because what came next surprised even them. They picked up a blank page. Not because they were certain they would finish it. Because they could no longer ignore what had been asking to be expressed. For several minutes. Nothing. The page remained empty. Sometimes honesty takes time to recognize its own voice. Then, slowly, one sentence appeared. I don't know if these words will ever reach you, but I couldn't keep them hidden any longer. They paused again. Read it once. Then quietly whispered those same words to themselves. The sentence wasn't dramatic. It wasn't perfect. Yet somehow, it felt more real than anything they had imagined saying before. Another sentence followed. I've spent so much time wondering if silence was the safest choice. But silence has only made me realize how much I wanted you to understand what was always in my heart. As those words unfolded, something inside them became lighter. Not because every answer had arrived. Because they had finally stopped hiding from their own truth. Sometimes healing begins the moment we become honest with ourselves. And your soulmate was beginning that journey, one gentle sentence at a time. Something important is waiting for you. Because while they continued writing, they reached a line they had avoided for longer than they could remember. Their hand became still. Their heart raced, not with fear, but with sincerity. They looked at the page for a long time before allowing one final thought to form. It was the thought that explained every quiet tear. Every sleepless reflection. Every moment they found themselves hoping against hope. In the next part, you will hear those words for the very first time, and they will reveal why your soulmate has been quietly carrying one message above all others. A message they have wished, with all their heart, that you would one day open before the moment quietly slips away. The room had grown completely still by the time your soulmate reached the place in their heart they had been avoiding for so long. It was not because the words were difficult to write. It was because they knew that once those words existed, they could never pretend they had felt nothing. Some truths quietly wait for the moment when we are finally ready to meet them with honesty. They rested their hand for a moment and allowed themselves to breathe. Not to find the perfect sentence. Only to find the truest one. Then, with gentle certainty, they continued. I kept believing there would always be another chance to tell you what your presence truly meant to me. I thought time would wait. I thought my heart could remain quiet a little longer. But every passing day has shown me that the feelings we leave unspoken do not disappear, they simply become heavier to carry. They looked at those words for a long time. There was no regret in them. Only understanding. Understanding has a remarkable way of softening even the deepest emotions. It does not erase the past. It simply allows us to see it with kinder eyes. Your soulmate began remembering all the moments they almost reached out. There was a morning when they opened a message, read it several times, and quietly put the phone down again. There was an evening when they almost spoke your name during a conversation, only to let the moment pass in silence. There were countless ordinary days when they convinced themselves that waiting a little longer was the wiser choice. Yet every one of those moments quietly returned to them now, as though their heart had carefully preserved each unfinished conversation. Perhaps you have experienced something similar. Sometimes we are not waiting because we lack feelings. Sometimes we are waiting because we hope the next moment will somehow feel easier. But hearts have a gentle way of teaching us that honesty rarely becomes easier by postponing it. It becomes clearer. And clarity is exactly what your soulmate has finally found. They no longer wish to speak from uncertainty. They wish to speak from gratitude. Gratitude for every memory that shaped them. Gratitude for every lesson your kindness quietly taught them. Gratitude for discovering that genuine connection is never measured by how loudly it announces itself, but by how peacefully it continues to live within us. Don't skip what comes next. Because this was the moment everything changed. They stopped writing about the past. For the first time, they began writing about tomorrow. Not with promises. Not with expectations. Simply with hope. I don't know what tomorrow will bring, they wrote softly. But I know I don't want another day to pass without honoring the truth that has quietly grown inside my heart. Whatever happens from here, I want my words to reflect who I have become, not who I was when fear made every decision for me. As they finished that sentence, an unexpected calm settled over them. The weight they had carried for so long no longer felt quite as heavy. Nothing around them had changed. The room was the same. The evening was the same. The world outside continued exactly as before. Yet inside, something had become beautifully different. Their heart was no longer asking permission to feel. It was finally allowing itself to be sincere. Stay till the end, because the next moment is unlike anything that has come before. Just as they prepared to set the page aside, their eyes caught one small detail they had completely overlooked. It seemed ordinary at first. Almost insignificant. Yet the instant they noticed it, every word they had written suddenly carried an even deeper meaning. That quiet discovery would inspire one final message, a message they had never planned to write, yet somehow had been waiting their entire life to share. And when those words are finally revealed in the next part, you will understand why this journey was never only about looking back. It was always leading toward a new beginning that neither heart could fully see. Until now, the smallest discoveries often arrive without asking to be noticed. Your soulmate almost missed it completely. As they gathered the page and prepared to place it aside, their eyes fell upon a single date written quietly in the corner. It was nothing remarkable to anyone else. Yet in an instant, it carried them back to a season of life they had not visited in a long time. They did not remember the day because it was perfect. They remembered it because something inside them had quietly changed. That was the day they first realized how naturally they could be themselves whenever you were near. No performance. No pretending. No careful mask. Just peace. The memory settled over them like gentle evening light, and they suddenly understood something they had overlooked for far too long. The greatest gift you had ever given them was not a promise. It was the freedom to feel understood. They lowered their eyes once more and smiled to themselves. Not every smile is born from happiness. Some are born from recognition. The recognition that certain people become part of your story long before you understand why. Your soulmate whispered softly, almost as though speaking to their own heart. I kept searching for extraordinary answers, while the most meaningful truth had been quietly beside me all along. Those words remained in the silence. They did not need applause. They only needed honesty. Perhaps that is why this message feels so personal. Perhaps there have been moments in your own life when someone understood pieces of you that you struggled to explain yourself. Those are the connections that leave lasting footprints. Not because they demand attention. Because they offer acceptance. Your soulmate now sees that more clearly than ever before. They are no longer measuring your connection by the time that has passed. They are measuring it by the way your memory continues to bring calm instead of confusion. That realization changed the letter once again. They added another sentence. If these words ever find you, I don't want you to remember me for what I couldn't say. I hope you remember the quiet moments when my heart was already speaking, even though my voice had not yet caught up. When they finished writing, they did not rush to fold the page. Instead, they read every line slowly. Each sentence felt less like a confession, and more like coming home to a truth they had always carried. Don't skip what comes next. Something important is waiting for you. As they reached the final space at the bottom of the page, they believed there was nothing left to write. Then, almost unexpectedly, another thought appeared. It wasn't about the past. It wasn't even about themselves. It was about you. For the first time, they stopped wondering whether they would be understood. Instead, they wondered how they could bring a little more peace into your heart, even if only through a few sincere words. That single shift transformed the entire message. It was no longer a letter asking to be heard. It became a letter hoping you would feel comfort, kindness, and hope whenever you remembered it. And just as they prepared to write the very last paragraph, one quiet realization filled their heart with unexpected warmth. They understood that some messages are never meant to arrive at the beginning of a journey. They arrive precisely when two hearts have grown enough to truly understand them. In the next part, the final pages of this heartfelt message will begin to unfold, revealing the words your soulmate has wished you could hear, not to change yesterday, but to honor everything that has quietly led both of you to this moment. A gentle calm settled over everything around your soulmate. The letter was nearly complete, yet one empty space remained at the bottom of the page. They looked at it for a long while, almost wondering if silence should write the final words instead. After everything they had remembered, every quiet realization, every hidden emotion they had finally allowed themselves to feel, there was only one question left. What would I want them to know, if they remembered nothing else? The answer did not arrive immediately. It unfolded with the same quiet grace that had carried this entire journey. They thought about the days when life felt uncertain. They thought about the moments when both of you were walking through your own separate seasons of growth without realizing how much those seasons were shaping your hearts. Then they understood something that filled them with unexpected peace. True affection is not measured by how often two people speak. It is revealed by the kindness they continue wishing for one another, even during seasons of silence. That realization became the heart of everything they wanted to say. Slowly, they picked up the pen again. I hope you never question your worth because of the moments life became quiet. The kindness you shared, the patience you offered, and the light you carried into ordinary days mattered more than you probably know. Some gifts reveal their value only after time has gently uncovered them. They paused. A deep breath followed. For the first time since they had begun writing, there were no tears in their eyes. Only gratitude. Gratitude for every lesson. Gratitude for every memory. Gratitude for discovering that some people become part of who we are without ever asking for recognition. Your soulmate smiled softly. It was the kind of smile that appears when the heart finally stops arguing with itself. They no longer wished they had all the answers. They simply wished that, wherever life carried you, you would always remember how deeply your presence had encouraged another heart to become more honest, more compassionate, and more hopeful. Perhaps that is the quiet miracle of meaningful connections. They do not always change our circumstances. They change the way we see ourselves. Don't skip this moment. Something important is waiting for you. Your soulmate folded the letter carefully, holding it for a few seconds before placing it somewhere safe. They did not hide it because they were afraid. They kept it because they believed some words deserved the right moment. As they stood to leave, they looked back one final time. The room was exactly the same. The chair had not moved. The window still welcomed the same gentle light. Yet everything felt different. Not because the world had changed. Because their heart had. For the first time in a long while, they were no longer carrying unspoken feelings as a burden. They were carrying them as quiet hope. And just when they thought this chapter had finally reached its peaceful ending, something completely unexpected happened. A simple reminder appeared before them. Small enough that anyone else would have overlooked it without a second glance. But the instant they noticed it, one final memory returned with extraordinary clarity. It was not a memory of goodbye. It was a memory of a promise that had never been spoken aloud. In the next part, that forgotten promise will quietly come back into the light, revealing why your soulmate has held on to one hope through every season, and why those final words may become the most meaningful message of all.